Hello, I'm Andrew Salmon. Welcome once again to WEC TV interviews. Now, every sector on Earth is impacted by this global debate on climate change. Perhaps no sector is as heavily impacted as is energy. How should the sector respond? Well, to answer that question, we have one of the major global thought leaders on this issue. She is the Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. She is, of course, Christiana Figueres. Christiana, thank you for appearing on WEC TV.
Thank you, Andy.
Very briefly, because I know you're tremendously busy. Every time there's a Congress, one of the highlights is the release of the Energy Trilemma report. What has been your reaction to this year's Trilemma report?
This year's Trilemma report has been very welcomed by us. First, because it points out the absolute primacy of policy. It truly comes down to policy, what our country is going to be enacting as their domestic policy, as well as, in my case, what our country is going to agree on international policy.
Right.
So I think the Trilemma report, although it divides it up into the three different factors, but at heart what is being said is policy truly does matter. The other part of the Trilemma report that has been very welcomed by us is the 10-point action plan, because I do feel that because it was such a broad consultation that led to that 10-point action plan, it really does hit the nail on the head. Those 10 points that are there truly are the 10 points that can make a difference. Not easy, any of them, but absolutely critical to pursue.
Okay. Speaking more of your own role, what role do you think global thought leaders, debate heads like yourself should be playing in formulating energy sector policy?
Well, let me say, you introduced this, Andy, by saying that no sector is as impacted as energy, and that is partially true, in the sense that, yes, the energy infrastructure that we have built over the past X number of years is certainly vulnerable to extreme weather events. But what is more important is not the effect of climate change on the energy infrastructure. It's the cause that the energy sector has on climate change.
Right.
So it's not impacted, it actually produces the impacts.
Okay, fair comment.
And there is really no sector of the human economy that has as much responsibility for climate change, but also there is no sector that has as many opportunities to actually address climate change as the energy sector. So the energy sector, both the sector in the private sphere as well as the business part of the energy sector, should be seeing themselves on the forefront of climate solution, because there is no doubt that the quality of the energy that we're going to have in the future will determine the quality of life on this planet.
Given that, let me reverse that question, if I may. What role can or should the sector be playing in shaping this global debate?
Because of the huge responsibility and because of the huge opportunity that the sector has, the sector truly does need to be much more forward-leaning. Yes, we have been able to take a certain number of countries into development and into a certain state of well-being on the basis of fossil fuels, on the basis of a certain very narrow set of technologies that have been used over the past 100 years. That can no longer be the case. We thank those technologies, we thank those fossil fuels for what has been done in history, but past cannot determine the future. We do need to expand the energy matrix. There is no doubt that fossil fuels and those technologies will play a role in the future energy matrix, but they cannot be the dominant fossil fuels, they cannot be the dominant technologies. In particular, new growth needs to be clean growth. And so the sector really does have upon its shoulders the responsibility to enact policy both at the domestic and at international level. It has the responsibility to invest in the necessary capital into research, development, and deployment. And it has the responsibility to begin to work hand in hand with the financial sector to develop the appropriate financial tools and the financial architecture that are going to bring the new technologies on board.
Okay, let me ask you one very, very final question. And can I ask you to answer yes, no, or maybe? Is the global energy sector on board when it comes to climate change?
Not yet.
Okay. Christiana, thank you very much indeed for appearing on WEC TV. It was a pleasure, and thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you are.
Thank you very much.
But please don't turn away. We've got more stuff coming up on WEC TV very, very soon. More news, more interviews. Keep your eyes on the screen.